To tell us about their joys and adversities are Renée Sferrazza and Daniel Reyes, Cocka. I'm so happy we're doing this. So I want to start with something that, you know, some people might call controversial, and it's coming out stories. Not everyone believes that there should be or has a coming out story, but you two have already told us you're okay about talking about it.
Yes.
Okay, so Renée, tell us a bit about your coming out story.
I think it's so funny because I'm definitely the person that did not have a coming out story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's so funny. When I look back on my life, I'm like, why didn't I realize I was gay? Every, like, movie I've ever watched as a kid, I'm, like, zooming in on the female lead, like, the greatest thing has ever happened.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't figure it out because I was mainly focused on becoming myself. I was bullied a lot in elementary school. High school was just about making friends. University was about finding my career. I didn't even start to realize my own sexuality until like the middle of my 20s.
Yeah.
That's when everything kind of changed for me. But I didn't even come out to my family. I just kind of kept changing in my own way. And then for my very first girlfriend, I brought my dad to a party and her to a party and was like, I'm dating. You guys meet. Goodbye. I'm going to go somewhere else and do this party.
Yeah.
And I basically did the same thing to my mom. They're divorced, so they got separate introductions.
Yes.
But for me, like, I come from an immigrant family background. My parents only meet the most important people. They met two boyfriends, they met two girlfriends, one of which is my current partner, and that was it.
And that was it. And they didn't ask a lot of questions. They're just like, okay.
Yeah, you know, like I had a little bit of a rough time up until that point in life, and they were just more like, okay, you got a house, you got a bank account, this person loves you, that's amazing, everything's cool, great.
Good.
Great. That's all they cared about.
Yeah, because parents love you, and that's all that counts. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Right? Daniel, how about you?
You know what? I'm actually a little bit the opposite. So I do have a coming out story, but I was similarly very bullied in high school. Like, like ferociously bullied. And I wasn't really comfortable being myself. I mean, I am loud and proud today, but high school was a hard time. So I came out of the closet at 22. I was very late to the game, quote unquote. And I like that you acknowledge that nowadays a younger generation doesn't come out. It's just there's a conversation around identity and gender and representation, and I wish that I had experienced that, but I'm so proud that that's where we're at. So I came out at 22. I started dating. I had a lot of fun dating. I mean, coming out was interesting because my father was a little bit more conservative. My late dad was French-Canadian, and he didn't take it very well when I first came out. And then it was the opposite about 6 months later. So every gay person was going to be my boyfriend. Every single gay person. And I was like, it's okay. Like, so it was a nice change of pace, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when you did start dating, Daniel, what was that like for you? Do you remember looking back?
Okay, so I'm old enough to remember before the apps.
Yes.
Yes. And I really appreciated that you could go to the bar, you could go dancing with your friends, or friends of a friend introduced you, right? That was sort of how you got to know people, was in person.
Yeah.
The apps these days are interesting.
Is that baby Daniel?
That is baby Daniel.
Oh,
there he is, 20-year-old me. That's when you used to bring a camera before it was a TikTok thing to bring a camera places,
That's right.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in my day. But I had a lot of fun in my 20s. That's how you got to know people. You met them through friends, and dating was an experience and exciting. The apps these days are a little interesting because I hear horror stories from friends that are dating. Yeah, and a lot of the time it's very, I'm going to say this as PC as I can for TD, transactional and physical. And it can be hard to find a true connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, growing up, did you have preconceived ideas about kids and the timeline and marriage and...
Oh, yeah. I grew up in a household, I loved Disney movies. I loved the idea of a fairy tale happily ever after, even if I was going to marry a prince and not a princess. So I thought that by 30 I needed to be married, by 35 I needed to have kids. I had a timeline in my mind. And I actually was engaged prior to being married to my husband right now, and it broke up horribly. And when I was dating after that, I got really jaded, and I would tell people on the first date, like, hey, I don't need to know your whole life story. Do you want kids, yes or no?
Right.
Like that's where I had ended up, right? Because I was just really angry with the world and dating and all those things. So now I live in a much more realistic timeline. Life changes and evolves, and you never know where it's going to take you, and you've got to just sort of go with the flow sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get rid of these arbitrary deadlines. They actually don't mean anything at all. We were talking about preconceived notions with Daniel. Talk to me about that with you. Do you feel like you have that in your relationship now?
So it's so funny because, like, for me and my partner, who I've talked about on the show before, like, what we really like about our relationship is that it doesn't come with any of these pre-considered gender norms. Like, that's me and my partner there. We did a Diwali party, and what I love about this photo is we're smiling, but that high five is when we realized the party was going well, and we're like, yes, now we can relax. But, you know, we don't have these preconceived notions of my gender dictates I'm going to do this. We just kind of go for whoever is the most competent will be in charge of this.
Okay.
And vice versa. And we often say, I'm the chef and you're the sous chef on this. So where it's very much a partnership in any conversation. And that's the best thing about it when it comes to financial planning, when it comes to how we want to look at our lives or what we want to do, or even the mundane stuff like fixing the car or whatever. It's whoever's best is in charge, and then the other person helps.
And so you get to make your own rules with who is going to do what and how that's going to work.
Yeah, my partner really likes the car. She has no idea how it works. I am in charge of the car and all of the fixing of it. And she is really great at many other things that I am terrible at.
Got it. Yes. And I think that that's good. It's nice to have someone that can fill in, you know, have the strengths when you have the weaknesses.
Exactly.
My husband jokes around every day. He's like, oh, Tracy, I was just going to take out the recycling. I know I've never done this before, but is it just out the door? He's the only one who does it. So it's a running joke now. It's like, do you even know where it goes, Trey?
I really like him. I do something similar.
He's like, so I'm just going to, I'm like, okay, sure, you can do it this once. Listen, we can all learn from each other. So what can hetero relationships and people that are dating in heteronormative relationships learn from your relationship, Renee?
I think it's really important to, like, understand who your partner is and give them the space to, like, be themselves. Understand how they are in arguments, how they treat their life around them, how they feel about certain situations, and what time that they would need. And always to remember that how they interact with the world is not against you. It's you're their partner.
Yeah, you're pushing in the same direction. Daniel, how about you? What can we learn?
You know what? I think that we live in a world that others a lot right now.
Yes.
And everything is about, well, I'm not like this, so I'm going to hate it or be angry at it. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. I am very much myself. Fabulously, I'm wearing patent leather high heels. I have acrylic nails. I have pink hair. But when I share things on social media, both about myself and about my relationships, it gets visceral hate. So I think that a reminder that we are all human beings. Love is an expression. I think terminology around relationships is changing and evolving as well. There's new definitions about what love is, what monogamy is, what finances are. Like, there's a lot of ways to express yourself in different ways now, and I love that. But that we are all still human beings, loving one another.
I do like the idea of taking a beat for a second to understand that other people have different perspectives and journeys through life. So even if you don't understand it, or if it's not your journey, you can take a second to try and understand. Like, just, you don't have to hate it.
Exactly.
You don't have to hate it out the gate. And I agree 100%, Daniel, that's where we're at right now. You know, there's no sort of neutrality. There's no waiting for a minute and trying to understand. It's reactive. And it's mostly reactive negative. So thank you so much for being so honest with these stories. It's so great to hear from our experts about your personal lives.